In this episode, find out how you can win the Warhammer 40k Vigi's Defiant campaign book.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Weekender. Across from me is Jerry.
Hello.
Up on the screen as always we have Ben.
Hello.
And I am Sam from OnTableTop.com. Unfortunately no Warren again this week, but that's okay. I've come prepared. I'm ready to talk about stuff I love.
Shocking.
Yeah.
We need to start frisking you on the way.
Yeah, you need to frisk me to find any little hobbits on my person.
I didn't say I'd be frisking you. I'll get somebody to frisk me. Justin. Justin seems like the prime candidate for that.
Delegated frisk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I refuse. You will not take my hobbits from me. Anyway, yeah, we've got quite a few updates before we actually get started on the show itself. First of all of the prize winners for Essen have now been announced. If you head over to our prize claim center on OnTabletop.com there, and you'll find all the details there. I can't remember, how many prizes did we have for that, Ben? Was it somewhere around 40, wasn't it?
It was definitely over, I think it was like 30, 40 prizes, so there's quite a lot to choose from. It's not all just board game stuff either, so there was some people that won some really cool wargaming stuff as well, which is good. So
yeah, some absolutely fantastic stuff there. As well as that, we've got some really interesting articles running on the site at the moment about the history of 2000 AD on the tabletop.
Yeah, if only I could have got, well, pretty much all of them from the hobby hangouts would be good, because, you know, every time 2000 AD comes up in the hobby hangouts, certain people, like this person here, like Lance, like John, they all get very confused by the quality that is 2000 AD, so it's nice to see those articles going up there.
What do you mean they get confused by the quality? It's sheer quality.
Yeah, yeah. That's not how they describe it. Although there is an SH sound at the start.
Do you want to take us through these articles, Ben?
yeah, sure. So Moji is one of our community members who's been working with us, putting together this article series, basically looking at all the different kind of periods that have existed for the 2000 AD license on the tabletop. His first article was looking at the sort of early Games Workshop years and sort of looking how that came about, including not only the miniatures game but also a role-playing game as well. And then the second article in the series that came out this week, he was also looking at what happened with Mongoose Publishing when they had control of the Judge Dredd license and all that kind of thing as well. And he's going to be continuing this with another part as well, which will look to sort of like what's happening now and sort of in the future what's going on with Warlord games as well and where they can take things. But it's a rich and it's a very vibrant universe, and it has a lot of its very hardcore fans. So it was really nice to have Moji on board, sort of, who really knew his stuff about the world of 2000 AD, sort of talking through some of the games he's got, because he has a rather insane collection of all the different games and things. And you can see a couple of lists there as well, showing off the chronology of sort of how things have come together too, which I thought was really good as well. So yeah, if you like 2000 AD, or if you're slightly, you know, interested in the idea of it and sort of, you know, you've been looking at the new Warlord game, maybe check back to see where it all came from when it came to the tabletop.
Yeah.
So.
It's been very interesting to see the development of 2000 AD on the tabletop, because, of course, I think it was this year, wasn't it, that Strontium Dog came out from Warlord?
Yes. Yeah. Warlord picked up the full games license. And I think actually the miniatures license as well off Mongoose. Well, not Mongoose lost it. Yeah. But Warlord had it. Foundry also had miniatures. So for a while there, you could have got 28mm miniatures from Wargames Foundry, and then the same type of miniatures from Mongoose, whatever way the license had been split. Now it's just Warlord have it. And I think they've got, rather than just Judge Dredd, they have carte blanche to do all the 2000 AD things. So we've got Strontium Dog, and I assume we're going to see other things from them.
Rogue Trooper as well, probably.
Of course, yeah, Rogue Trooper I imagine will be coming, because everybody likes,
you
know, it belongs to the Norts. Nobody likes it.
Well, I've got to ask, Jerry, you've had a long and varied history of games in the past. Have you played any of these?
I used to own some of those, and they got left behind at some point when I was moving house in Belfast. So somewhere there's a cupboard that contains Block Wars, or Block Mania, and Chainsaw Warrior, which is really annoying. Yeah, yeah, because it wasn't until, and because of my collection being a bit esoteric and random, it's not until years later when I go, where's that box? And then go looking for it, go, the box isn't here, the box is nowhere. I've lost that box, and I have no idea at what point it got left behind. But yeah, so yeah, between those and the actual the RPG as well, I used to play a bit of, and they were great fun, especially if you're into the comics.
Yeah,
because it's you know, it's very different from if people only have met 2000 AD via Dread, be it the Sylvester Stallone or the Carl Urban versions. They are very different. Stallone's is probably closer in style to the comics, but Carl's is closer in actual content and the way it's set up. So I know obviously next year I think the people who hold the license are having a 2000 AD TV series.
They are, yeah.
I think they're planning a couple of different TV series based on different parts of the license. I think it's Redemption, it might be. So they worked, Brian from Redemption anyway. It might not be Redemption Studios, whoever currently owns the license anyway.
Someone.
Brian, who YouTube people may know as Temperance Crusade 01, back when he used to do a lot of 40k stuff. He worked on the original Sylvester Stallone. He was set designer on there, so he did a lot of the designs, and at one point he actually went through on his channel showing stuff he'd designed, like the Lawmaster and Lawgiver and some of the streets and things like that. So he's a big 2000 AD fan, so that TV series will hopefully be a lot closer to the comics than we've seen before. So
very exciting. I do have a confession to make. I like the Stallone movie.
I have a friend who liked it as well. You're both wrong.
Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible movie.
So wrong.
But it's kind of a guilty pleasure. I just enjoy it.
It's got Bruce Bigelow, American Gigolo in it.
Oh yeah, I fast forward through those.
Yeah, sure you do. They are favourite bits. Favourite bits.
Yeah. Anyway, enough of that. On to the important stuff. This came out there. Don't worry, this isn't going to be the main discussion of this. I am actually going to use this to illustrate a point. Yeah. Now, last weekend, some of you may know, I was at the Irish Hobbit League doubles tournament down in Dublin. And my little Shire army ended up against a force of Gundabad orcs. Now, for those of you who don't know, a lot of the Gundabad army is provided more or less entirely by Forge World. The giant trolls, which are just beautiful models, provided by Forge World, a lot of the other troop miniatures. And this had me thinking, in the Middle-earth world game, Forge World has kind of a unique role because a lot of these forces occupy the same space in the rules and lore as the ones that Games Workshop themselves sell normally. Now, 40k and Age of Sigmar, see, I told you I was getting back to the interesting stuff, is they have quite a few Forge World unique armies themselves. But is there really a need for Forge World armies anymore? Is there a space for them? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, why do you think that?
Why would there not be?
Well, think about it. A lot of these armies just exist on the same space as the normal one. Why are they being kept separate in this way? Rules-wise as well. I mean, you wouldn't... I haven't been to a 40k tournament in quite a while. You wouldn't really, but I don't remember ever seeing many Forge World only armies at those.
It depends when you were going to tournaments. Whenever I was going to tournaments, you didn't, because they didn't have Forge World only armies. These days, the current ITC allows any source from Games Workshop that includes the errata, the beta test, and Forge World lists. So if somebody wants to run Elysian Drop Troopers or Death Corps of Krieg, things that were in the background in the history, but GW never did miniatures for until Forge World came along, then they can. So yeah, it broadens what they can do. GW have a very narrow focus, despite the fact that they vomit forth stuff at a regular basis. I mean, you can't go by without at least 2 or 3 things being produced, but their focus is basic Marine. Now, that Marine can be painted in any chapter, but if you want something more bespoke, then you have to go to Forge World, because they can't physically do 20 different types of Imperial Guard Trooper or 15 different types of orc or whatever it happens to be, because their budget is constrained by what will get the maximum returns on it. Whereas something like a Forge World miniature, where they may only have to sell a dozen before they've paid for the cost of the sculpt and mold or whatever it is, because they're only ever dealing with relatively small amounts, and resin works for that because you can only get a small amount of pulls from a mold before you have to replace that mold. So they do this. They can do the bespoke, they can do the unique. They go, right, we may only sell 10 Primarchs. That's okay, because that's not going to cost us a fortune. If you're spending 10, 20,000 on a mold and it costs a penny a time to cast a plastic miniature out of that, you've got to sell an awful lot of them, even at, you know, a markup that's 20 or 30 pounds. You have to spend a ton of, or you have to produce and actually sell a mountain of them before you've paid for that mold. They're not going to do it. They never will do it. There's only so much they can have budget-wise that they can put towards things, and they need it to be as broad spectrum as possible.
Yeah. Yes, Ben?
I was going to say, I think like one of the reasons that this kind of came up, though, was when you were looking at the sort of stuff that came out for The Hobbit. This was a very special case because practically all of the armies in that book you can only make effectively using some of the stuff from Forge World.
Yeah.
And so for a book that's marketed as effectively part of the main licensed set that you get from Games Workshop for, you know, Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth strategy battle game, suddenly you've got a lot of people looking towards something that's very, 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 you know, different in price, different in hobbies, you know, to expertise and all that kind of thing, compared to what you'd see with a normal army. And I can see it would be, the thing that really is interesting here is whether or not we're going to see Games Workshop potentially taking what they've done for The Hobbit already and translating some of that stuff over into something that they could have as a more mainstream product. Because I think that a lot of the stuff that you would see in the Hobbit books could become very popular for a lot of people, because obviously one of the big things is that, you know, Forge World stuff is bespoke and it's for things that maybe aren't going to sell as well. But if you made a lot of the stuff that was out there for Forge World a lot more, you know, available through Games Workshop, I think you'd see a lot more people picking it up. And so that would be an interesting thing to see if there's some kind of crossover there in the future.
Yeah.
On the 40k front, it kind of comes back to, and obviously I take all the points you said, Jerry. That makes utter sense to me. But when it comes to some of the, like, particularly around the Imperial Guard, I think it would be fascinating for Games Workshop to try and take some of the stuff they created through the Forge World line and bring that over into the plastic side, because I think, well, this is maybe just me, but I think a lot of people are just sick of Cadians. And it would be nice to see a lot of the stuff like Death Corp of Krieg and all that kind of thing brought over into a slightly more mainstream feel, so that there's a lot more sort of character built into those forces. Now, obviously, as you say, there's you know, money issues involved there, but, you know, we've seen accessory kits already done for a lot of Space Marine chapters already in plastic. So we saw like Black Templars and Blood Angels and Dark Angels. So is that something that could potentially be done for Imperial Guardsmen taking forward? So taking some of that stuff from the Forge World line and moving that over into the plastic production and stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because they have in the past used Forge World for 40k. Some of the Imperial Guard tanks, the Hydra Akak, it was Forge World only. The Vanquisher, Lehman Russ variant with the extended barrel, it was Forge World at the start, as was the Manticore. So they have gone that way, where they've taken ranges that worked or vehicles that worked, but not everything's come across. I agree with you, though, they really could do with refreshing the Imperial plastics.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking about this last week.
There's been talk about plastic greatcoat trippers for, I'm going to say, 15 or more years now, where people have gone, oh, they're doing them. They're definitely, we're going to see Valhallans, or we're going to see a dual kit that can do Valhallans or Deathcore with just head swaps in it any day now. And you're going, yeah.
Much like Sisters of Battle.
Yeah, much like Sisters of Battle. Eventually, you know, every time somebody asks for it, they reset the clock and it gets pushed back again in another 2 months. Yeah. But no, they could definitely do something. But again, it's one of those, how much do they have budget-wise to do it? For something where they could do a multi-part kit, or a kit that has additional pieces in it that allow you to vary it and give you a bit more a bit more variation, essentially, a few different characters in there, whatever it happens to be, that would be great. But prior to the Cadians coming, there was 7, 8 different regiments, all in metal. But when they came to do plastic, they just went, well, we're not doing any of them, and then they half-assed the Catachans when they finally decided to introduce those, and they were terrible. They looked like they'd taken a step back from the actual Cadian box that they'd produced. The quality just wasn't there. So it's one of those where it would be great to see more. We'd love to see more, especially guard players.
Yeah.
Wouldn't bother any more Marines. Too many of them.
Well, you were showing off one of the armies there, the Death Quarter Cree that they've got. I will say, Forge World stuff is some of the best on the market. It's incredible character sculpts and pieces. But we are seeing, just on the plastic side of things as well, Games Workshop's quality of plastic sprues. That a lot of them are almost up there with some of the Forge World resin. Oh,
yeah. There's stuff you can't do in plastic to the same degree without either making it so multi-part that it becomes an inconvenience to build. Things like chainmail. You'll never get the same sculpt of a chainmail on a fantasy or historic miniature as you will with resin or metal because of the undercuts. So you'll end up where you'll get sections that will have no sculpt on it or very flat, smooth surfaces, because the way the machine casts them, there's no flex in those massive steel dies. And if you put a load of quality sculpt like that, all you'll end up with is some plastic trapped in a bit of metal. So that's never going to be there, unfortunately. Now, there is slide core tooling, which means they can produce undercuts to a certain extent in some plastics, and that's come along massively, and you do see that. But I think there'll always be a place for the resin or metal sculpts from different companies that you just won't get the same amount of detail in a plastic. That's just me. What I would like to see is Forge World going back to doing what they used to do at the start, which is busts. I have a shelf full of busts and one-off and figures, so Space Wolves, Commissars, Nazgul, the Orc Shaman, all, you know.
I remember those,
Gilead and Marius Darkblade from the High Elf and Dark Elf. And they were all, one of these days I'm going to prime them and paint them. I'm not going to do that. But having things like that, I can see, again, would be another...
Now. You've said it on the internet.
Yeah. I've said a lot of things on the internet. I'm going to paint, not painted any of them. But I think Forge World they're in the position where they could do these bespoke things. The fact they don't anymore surprises me.
Yeah.
That they did go, look at these unusual, intricate things, and then sort of drop them at the wayside at one point. So
you think like that it comes down to a fact that with Forge World, while there'd be a want for a lot of these kind of additional things that would be fantastic for the existing armies in 40k, it's just a question of monetary sort of value for them, and that they could create, for example, if we're going to look at some of the chapters that exist, you know, from the guys at Forge World, like they do Red Scorpions and Minotaurs and that kind of thing. If they did those in plastic, the demand wouldn't be high enough for them to warrant doing it effectively. So
I think that's exactly it. I think also at one stage, I don't know if it's changed, but at one stage Forge World worked off a separate budget from Games Workshop, which meant they could do things like the massive Imperial Armor books. When they started churning those out, there was nothing that Games Workshop produced for the main range of games, codices or rulebooks that came close to those, but they were doing them because they had a very niche market and they knew they would be able to sell these books at what was probably 2 or 3 times the price of a codex at that stage, as big sort of coffee table books for their sort of fan base. And likewise, they were in a position to do the sort of specialist games, bits and pieces, when Games Workshop didn't have the resources to devote to that because they'd moved on to either new specialist games, so let's say the Middle Earth stuff. So they're now currently pushing Blood Bowl and Kill Team and Necromunda, which means I'm assuming the budget for secondary games is currently focused on those, so they don't have the budget to actually make Orcs and Nazgul and whatever, whereas Forge World can then go, well, we'll pick up that you're not currently pushing mainstream in the stores. So I think there might be a payoff to that to a certain degree.
It is an interesting way how Games Workshop, how Forge World is now being utilized to support that, because it does mean that support is there for the games.
It means when people get into a game, they're not worried that in 3 years' time it's going to disappear because it will no longer have a space on the shelf and it won't be supported. I know for a long time, Middle-earth and Hobbit players weren't getting any support.
We were lost in the dark.
And if you wanted to start playing it, you had to look for secondary suppliers, go to other companies, or go to various auction sites like Fleabay and pay through the nose for, you know, what should have been a fairly simple blister pack, you know, maybe a £10 blister pack, and they were going for 4 or 5 times the face value.
Mate, the best one of those I saw was a single base with 2 footprints on it.
Oh, the Frodo in ring?
Yeah, Frodo wearing the ring, going for £200 on eBay.
Yeah. Less said.
I was going to say, it kind of brings me on to an interesting topic then for Forge World going forward in the future, is that obviously one of their big things is their Horus Heresy range.
Yes.
And we saw Games Workshop, obviously they did Betrayal at Calth, and they did, is it the Burning of Prospero as well, where we had a lot of the plastic kits come out. And they still exist on the web store. You can go and check those out on the Games Workshop web store and stuff. But there's still a lot of miniatures available through Forge World that you can go and pick up. And it's not just upgrade kits as well. They do their own, you know, marks of armor and all that kind of thing for the different chapters as well. Do we see a role for Horus Heresy going forward, or is it something that we might start to see getting phased out potentially? Because I know there are a lot of players out there that really that enjoy it, but is it enough for it to become a huge thing for them? Whereas, could they potentially just see things sort of peter off, look more towards this idea of being accessory based, and then just sort of slowly phase out all the rest of the stuff for Horus Heresy maybe in the future? But
that's an interesting one for a couple of reasons. One, Horus Heresy was birthed by Forge World. They started doing it, and people really got on board, so much so that Games Workshop, who said they would never do Horus Heresy as a plastic set.
Went and made the miniatures,
actually made the miniatures. But something about this came up fairly recently on the site, where somebody was actually discussing the fact that with Games Workshop starting to change the scaling, even though they say they are, as we see more and more Primaris, they really do have a noticeable difference in size. So I could see it going one of 2 ways. One, they'll just keep it at Forge World because they do look very small in comparison. Or a couple of years down the line, 2-3 years, when the Primaris Marines have taken over all of 40k and everything has been embiggened, possibly at that point they may go, let's go for the Horus Heresy as a new game. Pardon me. Let's go for Horus Heresy as a new game and boost everything scale-wise.
Yeah, because this was one of the things that I was thinking about when it came to this topic, is that we have this idea of, like, with the stuff for the Hobbit, I think it feels like it should be, it feels right that they could move over a lot of this stuff from the resin and stuff that they do at Forge World into plastics and stuff, just to help people who want to try and get into that Middle-earth game. When in the future, considering what we talked about last week when it came to Primaris and sort of this changing scale, as you say, maybe this is the antidote to people that want to have that slightly more old school Space Marine look, and also build on that ability to use those miniatures in your games as well, to have this idea that a lot of that Forge World stuff moves over into main plaster production, and then they sort of support it in the sidelines a little bit, like what they're doing for Blood Bowl and that kind of thing. So
it's an interesting point that how of the traditional Marines moving over toward the idea of the traditional Marines moving towards the Forge World production. That's something we've kind of seen done before, where an old school product was brought over and continued by Forge World. In the case of pretty much the Chaos Dwarves being a very good one. If you bring up the Legion of, they've had their name changed for Age of Sigmar. They are the Legion of Asgore.
Could be that certainly.
Yeah. Which the only way to speak Dwarvish is by gargling gravel.
If you're playing at home, that's a Pratchett reference. Drink now.
You got it. Yeah, but we saw them continued over on Forge World, and they're absolutely fantastic sculpts. A really nice update for the old big-hatted dwarves.
I was a fan of the big-hatted dwarves, though.
Oh, well, they've carried them on a bit there if you look at the Demon Smiths.
Yeah. But it's a very good point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jerry. I was just gonna say, like, I think this is another one of those armies that exist as a Forge World project that could potentially just see itself generated into a full-on Age of Sigmar one. They're always on the hunt for new factions and something new that they can, put out there into this slightly more high fantasy version of things. And so why not move a lot of that stuff from what they're doing there, if it sells well enough, into plastic production? Because I think that could make a lot of people very happy. To have some evil dwarves in plastic could be pretty good. So.
It's a weird one, because even back in the day, Chaos Dwarves were never actually a main.
No,
army.
they weren't.
Their army book only came in the form of a White Dwarf Presents, which is just a compilation of articles from there.
I own that army book, actually. It's a tiny wee thing.
It's not just about size. It's what you do with it, Sam.
True enough.
But again, when they resurrected the Chaos Dwarves, that was part of Tamarkan.
Yes.
Which would have been Rick Priestley's end times if he'd been allowed to plow on with it. So yeah, that as a niche little thing, and the amount of people who've called for Chaos Dwarves over the years, being able to pick them up is great. But it's strange, because if you go through what they have there for Warhammer Age of Sigmar now, it's not the same as what they had for Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So some of the actual sculpts have disappeared from the various ranges. 2 or 3 of the Empire lines have actually gone away.
Yeah,
including things like the Marienburg landship. So it's not the complete range. And even though Forge World used to produce the rules to go with the products that they did, that seems to have been cut back somewhat, and it's more sort of I don't want to say focused, but if the rules aren't currently there, then they aren't producing rules to go with those sort of main lines.
Which is a shame. That I remember a few years back when Forge World announced they were going to put more focus on Warhammer Fantasy figures with the announcement of, I think it was called Warhammer Forge. They kind of branch off, focusing on those miniatures, and they were great for filling in gaps in the world. That's another thing that Forge World is really good for, is filling in those gaps.
That's it. Again, and it comes down to the time and ease of getting a product made compared to having to fit it into. I have no idea whether they get their plastic molds cast in the UK or cut in the UK anymore, if they're all China, but having to get something approved, sculpted, and then shipped off and then shipped back, as opposed to getting it cast, having masters made, and then some bloke in Lenton casting a load of resin. There's a much faster turnaround on that, so they can just go, we're missing this from this range. It'd be really handy if we had a cockatrice, because I hate tree men, and cockatrices are great for killing off tree men. Just saying, it is. But yeah, so it's one of these things where they can focus in, and they can very quickly fill gaps that appear. But I think as a niche, Forge World will always have a place, because people will always want those little oddities.
Definitely.
I think one of the things that comes down to as well is this idea of accessibility, potentially, as well. Like, I think for Games Workshop, they want to have Age of Sigmar become something that's very, very easy to get into. So having practically all of the line be available in plastic and easily, put together, and a lot simpler to use than the stuff you get from Forge World for just modeling and hobby purposes. That's why we're maybe not seeing them doing a lot of stuff in Forge World for Age of Sigmar. Whereas with 40k, because it's a little bit more established and they have that, they can continue to work on a lot more of the accessories and that kind of thing and build up that stuff. So that's why we see such a plethora of stuff on that form. Also, I guess many people would say that 40k is more popular than Age of Sigmar, which would probably be a thing. So
yeah,
definitely.
I imagine so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so one final point here. I'm fully expecting the answer to be no here. Do we think that in the future we might see them do, with the army lists and army builds, what they have done with the Middle-earth games, where there will be Forge World models will be included in the main lists themselves? There will be room for that inclusion. And what would that mean for the game if there was more of that interaction and crossover?
Again, they did do this. Some of the Imperial Guard tanks were only available from Forge World for a while, so I can't see them never doing it. I don't know if they'll do it anytime soon. Because it does make it a bit too, bespoke. But since they brought in their own resin, the barrier, because it's resin, isn't as big an impact as it was 10 years ago. because if somebody's used to using plastic glue only because everything they bought was plastic, that's one thing. But now there are the GW resin, which is different from the Forge World resin, but people are used to having to hot water bend things back into shape or apply super glue. There's less of a barrier. There's more of a sort of muddying of the waters there as far as component parts go.
Okay.
I was going to say, I think we might see that crossover happen more if maybe what Jerry was saying is something that could come true in the future, where we see the Horus Heresy line becoming something that's a little bit more established within the Games Workshop sort of remit, and then you see a lot of that Forge World stuff sort of transitioning over into the rules, because maybe they do some kind of rules update for the stuff of Horus Heresy, bring it in line with 8th edition, make it accessible on a rules front, and then sort of use the miniatures as this nice bridging gap to allow people who like that old style of design to still see that on the tabletop potentially. So,
excellent. Okay, well, I came here with a question: is there still a place for Forge World? I think most definitely that's been answered yes.
But not in the Hobbit. Move all those things into Games Workshop.
Yeah, move them over. Do that. Move them over. We want system. We want system.
I don't care where the Hobbit goes. It can, if they move into Games Workshop, that's fine. Yeah.
It's my birthday. Give them to me. It actually is. So yeah, if you have your thoughts on that, please be sure to leave a comment either on Tabletop or below on the YouTube video here. We are actually giving away a 40k prize this week. I forgot to mention this earlier. Bad, Sam. We comment for your chance to win the Warhammer 40k Vigilus campaign book. So that's the new campaign book that's coming out. Very exciting stuff happening there. Great. So
is that you told now?
Yeah. That's me done with this. Don't worry.
No excuse not to comment.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, I'm done with the Hobbit stuff. Don't worry. You can all come out now. So, Ben, let's move on to the news. What's been happening in the world?
Cool, yeah. So the first piece of news is up for those people who like playing a lot of Star Wars Legion. And this is that Microdot Studios have been working their way through some new terrain for this. And it starts off with an Imperial depot that they've designed in HDF. It's looking very, very cool indeed. It's kind of been sort of done as almost like one of those kind of prefab buildings maybe you would see put down by the Empire across the vast amount of planets they control in the Star Wars universe. So you can have this on something like Hoth or Endor or Tatooine and all that kind of thing, or the Forest Moon of Endor, which would be the correct way of saying it. But yeah, this has it can either be done as one larger piece, it can be separated out. It has sliding doors and gangways and all ways that you could play around inside it as well. But it's a nice little sort of piece that could be working as a little bit of a focal point on a slightly larger table. So if you're trying to create a sort of maybe dense jungle atmosphere or something, and then maybe having some of these dotted around to sort of show the Imperial presence, you've got that there. Would be pretty cool. They're also working their way through a whole bunch of different bases, which can be used for interiors. So if you're playing through things like starships, maybe you're doing a rebel attack on a Star Destroyer or something, that could be pretty cool, or on the Death Star, something that could be pretty fun too. Or maybe down on urban environments. Like one of the ideas I had was maybe using this as some of the floors on Coruscant. So if you're doing anything down sort of planet side, you've got some interesting ideas there too. Microart haven't just been doing Star Wars stuff either. They've also been working on some other bits and pieces, and they've also been doing some new objectives for Infinity. So if you play their tournaments thing, so if you play ITS, then there's a whole bunch of stuff for you to get stuck into for Infinity as well. So Microart catering to lots of sci-fi worlds there.
Yeah. Microart are going from strength to strength with a lot of their terrain. It's been interesting. I remember some of their earlier stuff when I started reporting on tabletop gaming, and it just keeps getting better every time.
I measure the amount of Microart Studio I have in feet. I have many feet of Microart Studio stuff that need to be dealt with. But between the mixture of having the HDF kits, the buildings, which are looking fantastic. I mean, that Star Wars, I assume, garage. Yeah. Must be a good foot across by probably about 10 inches wide easily, and then it looks like it's probably about 10 inches high. That's a big chunky piece of terrain to stick down. But I like how they do the little incidental pieces in either resin or foam. So I mean there's like foam shipping containers and boxes and resin sort of streetcars and the like for Infinity, and I'd love to see some of those for Star Wars as well, just to give you little like little hover cars and taxis and stuff. So you really could go Coruscant Central.
That would be so cool, just having a bunch of those wee hover cars about the place. Imagine if you could then home cook up some rules for jacking a hover car.
Or stealing one.
Yeah.
Entirely up to you.
So, I have no idea what you're implying there. Move on, Ben. Move on.
I'm not implying anything.
So the next news piece we're looking at is from the guys at Fantasy Flight Games, and it's still Star Wars related. And this is that they've shown off the inevitable opposite that you would have seen to Jyn Erso in the Rebel Specialist. You've also got Krennic now, Orson Krennic, and his Death Troopers are on the way. So Krennic is, as you might imagine, an interesting commander who's a little bit nefarious. So he's got a whole bunch of command cards that very much play into this idea of him being an insidious man playing behind the scenes. And he also has the Entourage rule, which allows him to take a unit of Death Troopers with him, which is very, very cool indeed. So if you remember Rogue One and what happened in there, you've got that kind of dynamic going on, which is really cool. The Death Troopers themselves are pretty insane. They're very, very good at ranged combat, as you might imagine. High-end specialists that aren't probably going to be running away anytime soon as well. One of their rules is actually that they are able to remove a suppression token every time they activate, so they're likely to stay around on the tabletop a lot more and get stuck into the fighting. And of course, with both of these kits, you've got a whole bunch of upgrades and all kinds of things like that as well you can throw into the mix. And they haven't just got their base weapons, but the Death Troopers have also got a larger sort of laser gun as well, if you want to throw in something a little bit more, with a little bit more firepower to it as well. We also got to see a look at towards the Rebel side and sort of going forward in future a little bit. And we saw Chewbacca in a little bit more detail. So we got to see a lot more of his stat card and sort of how he works. He's great in combat, as you might imagine. Always let the Wookiee win. And he's also very good at range because he has a bowcaster, which is an insane weapon.
Yeah.
He also has his Enrage ability, which triggers as he takes damage as well. And this ties in really nicely to his Guardian ability as well. So his Guardian allows him to sort of take wounds for his friends in this case, like Han Solo and the like as well. And then this sort of means that he can get charged up for his enrages. And if you use it right, obviously, you can throw Chewie into a whole bunch of stormtroopers and see him use them like pinatas, smashing them around and throwing them around like crazy. So yeah,
that's a terrible thing. Poor Chewie. Not only was he captured as a Wookiee on Kashyyyk at some point in the past, now you're using him as a big, massive meat shield and then throwing him at people. That's Wookiee abuse. Never abuse your Wookiee.
Definitely not. So
it's just a walking carpet, Jerry. No. I love Chewie. Chewie's amazing.
Don't say that to Jerry. You might be insulting family.
Part Wookiee.
So, Jerry, you, of course, were heavily involved in our Star Wars Legion coverage. What do you think of this stuff?
I love them. I really like how they've decided to make the next step of bringing in things from Rogue One, because it stays within that original trilogy era. So they're not having to worry about adding in things from the prequels or the sequels, so to speak, which I know they probably can do and they probably will do.
I think they announced they will be doing that at Gen Con.
But they really need to build up the base sort of game to give a bit more variety, a bit more variation. At the moment, the speed of releases isn't massively fast, so you may only have Stormtroopers and Rebels as the factions fighting at the moment. So you want to see as much variation in there as you can to actually get some more dynamics being played out on the tabletop. And I think Krennic's great. A big fan of Krennic and his Death Troopers all the time. So, yeah. And him and Chewie, finally getting Chewie out there, because you've got the option to put him in with, well, you can put him in with his best buddy, Han, or Leia. And they would make a really nice pair as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely increasing the tactical options you've got to draw upon with this. So, question for you, because you are, of course, a big Star Wars fan. I think we're all massive Star Wars fans.
I've been known to watch it on occasion, yes.
Yeah. If you could bring anyone from the lore, I don't even mean the stuff that is canon, I mean the stuff that Disney came in and threw out. If you could bring anyone into this game, who would it be?
Oh, my default would be Darth Revan or Bastila. Still love you, Bastila.
Revan, damn it.
But, well, I'll let you say Revan then, and I'll go for Kit Fisto.
Kit Fisto, yes.
Who was the... I want to say it was Nemodian, is he? No, I can't remember. He's the big-eyed, tentacled...
He's my favourite Jedi.
Jedi who just battered his way through. He was supposed to have a spectacular fight against the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
When they come in and then at the last minute George decided they weren't going to get the stunt double to do the fight. He just wanted to get the Emperor to actually do it himself, which is why they ended up with a lot of hammy acting as he, thrust at nothing at all because he's an old man and can't leap around a set properly. That was our chance to see Kit Fisto actually kick ass properly.
Because Kit Fisto has like a very specialized lightsaber, doesn't he, or something? It's like a vibrated, serrated look to it, which is really cool. I'm not entirely sure how it works. I'm sure someone will tell me. But
and he's always smiling. He's the happiest Jedi I've ever seen in my life.
Considering how morose they mostly are,
yeah. He lives life to the max.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Who would you like to see, Ben?
I would love to see Revan.
What an unexpected surprise.
That's the Old Republic. It's a fantastic game, and it would be great to see them go back into that kind of like golden era of the Jedi and stuff. That would be amazing. So.
Why would you not? The big kickoff of the Jedi versus Sith, the Interstellar War, all of that, the hyperspace wars, and more importantly, Revan just kicking ass left, right, and center. Because I imagine there are people who haven't played the Old Republic now because it is getting on a bit as a game.
Just a bit.
Somebody actually suggested the other day that we need to see that as a film and Keanu Reeves to play Revan. And I looked at a picture where they photoshopped Keanu's face, I'm assuming from John Wick, onto Revan's armor, and I'm going, oh yeah, I'd watch that.
That would be pretty awesome.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
No, now I was gonna just say, the Kivisto, but now I'm thinking, if only we could bring in that assassin droid whose name I've suddenly forgotten.
IG-88?
IG-88, yes.
Yeah.
Which one of IG-88? Because there are multiple. It's like
all
a hive
of
mind.
Them. Just all of them at once. Just have them as your army.
I think there's like 4 or 5 of them currently still alive and functioning.
Okay.
Yeah, not them though.
I would love them. That would be
Zuckus.
Hilarious.
Tiny Gand findsmen. I want just a group of essentially rattling snipers. The Gand. Just tiny little fellas with their helmets on. Rimbling about. Yeah, there's so much they could do.
Yeah.
And really should do. And just hammer the original trilogy era for as long as they can. Expand that as much as they can, I think, before branching out. Because a lot of people have said there's too many characters because it's based on a film. So if you have 24 characters, 12 for each side, but you've only got 3 squads of Empire and 3 squads of Rebel, it'll get very dull very quickly. They need to get more unique unit types out, and possibly even just some bland, dare I say it, a Empire or an Imperial captain or a Rebel commander. Basic, no named, just give them sort of generic abilities and make them a bit cheaper so that people can start to throw out some more, interesting battlefield options without just having to go, oh look, it's another force with Luke Skywalker in it. Looking down a line of tables at a tournament and just going, well, I'll be 10 Luke Skywalkers then and nobody else. Which is fine for a tournament, but kind of loses it a bit for campaigns and the like for me. So more part of their arm, but definitely more tiny fighting men, please.
It'll be very interesting to see what direction Fantasy Flight Games take it as we go into 2019. Okay, moving on from a galaxy far, far away, we come to one of my favourite comic book series, Mantic Hellboy celebrating the holidays with a new holiday Hellboy.
Yeah, so this is a new miniature that's come out from the guys at Mantic. It's going to be available throughout December if you want to go and pick it up. And it's a wonderful iteration of Hellboy in his Santa Claus getup. He even has rules for you to use him in their Hellboy board game as well. So if you want to go and pick that up, then that's definitely out there for you to go and check out. I believe there's some details on it. It's about 6 centimeters in height, I believe, or something like that. Does that make sense? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Measurements are a thing. And yeah, as I say, it's based on the art that you can see there by Mike Mignola as well. So it's got this really nice sort of authentic feel to it, and could be a good present for someone who is awaiting the Hellboy board game but doesn't have it yet and needs something to tide them over Christmas, potentially. So,
Mike Mignola's art is so cool, and I think that Mantic do a great job in carrying over that very stylistic style.
I'd be interested to see somebody actually doing that style of Kurablaba shading, where it's just harsh black and light. There's no shades of grey in it. I'd love to see some of the Hellboy miniatures painted like that.
Well, you say that. If I reach back, I hadn't expected to bring this onto camera, so we don't have a close camera set up, I'm afraid. But Lance, when the Hellboy game was first announced, did paint up a little preview of the Hellboy miniature from Mantic. We'll have to bring up some pictures. And we set him the challenge of trying to paint in that form.
Yeah, I think you just need to go another step beyond that. Just be really, really brutal. And I've seen it done with, I think it was 1664.
Yeah.
Possibly their range. Somebody in one of their studio painters had painted their miniatures, and it looked like, you know, where there was a fold of a cloak, they just painted it all black. It almost looked like it had been photoshopped out until you look closely and realize, no, they have just deliberately gone in there and just picked out the right cheek and the nose. And then painted all the rest, everything else in the internal was black. So it looked like there was nothing in there. And it just looked stunning. And doing it to match up to Mike's very unique style of illustration, I think would look beautiful. As to whether or not it's doable, don't know. It depends on the sculpt.
A challenge to be set for.
Yeah, yes. It'd be very interesting to see how that... I think those... Maybe they'd be better for display pieces. I'm less sure of how they'd look on the tabletop itself, but it would be fantastic.
Well, the nice thing is, because this is a board game, Mantic have chose to make the miniatures bigger. They're not 28mm, they're big chunky pieces because they're not meant to sit in scale with terrain and that sort of thing. So there's a bit more room to play with if you are artistically inclined. So yeah, it could be a winner. A lot does come down to the sculpt. It needs to lend itself to that sort of shading. Yeah. If you don't have the sort of the recesses and like there to work with, it will look like you've just painted big slabs of black onto it. So true enough.
Okay, on from that, we have Peter's Paperboys releases. Now, Ben, you were telling me about this earlier. What's going on here?
Yeah, so a lot of people will probably know Peter Dennis is an artist who's done a lot of stuff in the past for Osprey, and he's also worked on a whole bunch of other pieces as well. He's an amazing historical artist who does a lot of the box covers that you see for things like the Gripping Beast plastics and stuff. You'll see most of his illustrations on the front of a Bolt Action rulebook or a supplement and things as well as a whole bunch of other things that Osprey do as well. But he also has a liking for playing some war games, but he doesn't want to have to paint up a whole bunch of miniatures. And so he's designed this range of paper soldiers that you can use in your games. And the web store only went up, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now. And at the moment, he has not only some Caesarian Romans, but also some of the enemies that they come up against as well. So you've got Parthians, Gauls, and Dacians as well, and a few more on the way potentially too. But this is just a fantastic new and interesting sort of angle, and I'm sure it's been around for a while actually. But it's nice to see it coming back for those people that maybe don't have the time to paint up entire armies. So if you like your big mass battle games and you like historical war games, this could be a really, really good way for you to get stuck into games and start playing them out on the tabletop. There are actually some rules provided as part of the web store. You can go and check them out yourself. But of course, these could be used across other games as well. Like if you're going to be playing things like Hail Caesar, for example, you've got some good ideas there too. And the interesting thing about these as well is that they look very easy to cut out, which is very good. They feature Peter Dennis's artwork, which is also very good, but also there's fronts and backs to them as well. So, you know, all the pieces actually look like little tiny soldiers on the table, which I thought was really cool. And we've kind of seen it done with board games before, like Battle Ravens from the guys at PSC. They use that kind of like paper style troops on the tabletop for when you're putting together your shield walls and stuff. But it's really nice to see it coming into wargaming in this sort of like new and revamped style. And I really, really want to see them do some stuff for other eras. And I know they've already done stuff in the past for Napoleonics and World War II, a little bit of World War One. I think there was some Dark Age stuff in there as well. But Peter Dennis is a fantastic artist, and I'd love to see him do a lot more for this as well. So go and check this one out, I think.
Yeah, very interesting approach to it.
They're stunning. I love them to bits. I think he mentioned on Face Page this morning that he's got Napoleonics on the way, so that'd be good. One of the things they're also very handy for is trying new rule sets. Or, you know, if I want to get into Napoleonics at 28mm, it is not going to be cheap if you want to do it. However, if you do it with this, it's frighteningly cheap.
I think it's about £1 per option.
It's £1 per option. And once you've bought the license to download, you can print out as many times as you want, and you can rescale it. So they're set for 28mm, but through the medium of technological wizardry and getting somebody else like Lloyd to do it for me, I'll be able to rescale it to 6mm, 10mm, whatever, which means if I want to play Art de la Guerre, if I want to try Blucher out for Napoleonics, if I want to, and there's an awful lot of games I want to try, but I haven't got around to getting the figures together. And in some cases they are, because it's a completely new system, it may be a case of me getting figures together for this system that I don't play anything else in that scale, and then finding out the system's a dog. That's a big expenditure. And then stuff ends up sitting in a box somewhere until I find something to do with it. Being able to pick up an army for a tenner, or two armies for a tenner potentially, for some of the ancient stuff where you're just throwing out multiple versions of the same unit, is just fantastic. Yeah. So Napoleonics, here I come.
Fantastic. Now, I was going to say that we have finally found an army for Warren here. We save a John, print an army. But but then you suggested, no, we'll just get Lloyd to do it. We've just moved it along now.
Well, that's only if we're changing the scale. If you want to drop down to smaller scales. I'm not that technologically advanced that I can do things like changing scales on printers and knowing what size it will print out at. Which is why I sometimes try and print things and go, I'd like that at half size, and go, that is not anything that's not going to fit anywhere. What is that? So yeah, so somebody who's clever enough to actually go, I need to reduce the scale of this by 37% to get it to be 20mm. Well done, you. I don't know.
Well, either way, I think.
Also, I was going to say, I wouldn't trust Warren with a pair of scissors and a knife. So I think you still might need John to do some of the cutting out, I think.
Yeah.
Never wrong with scissors.
You raise a very good point there, Ben. Well, how much I trust Warren with the knife and the scissors depends how many cans of Boost he's had that day.
It's a very valid point.
Okay, and now we move on to our final news piece, the Drowned Earth campaign. There's a lot going on with the Drowned Earth at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So the guys behind Drowned Earth, James Baldwin and crew from, I think it's Olmec Games, they've been working on a fantastic new winter campaign which started at the beginning of December. And this is a new slow grow league that they've come up with that you can get involved with. You start with about 3 models from your faction, so you've got some nice, interesting characters there that exist throughout their entire range. And you play through a whole bunch of narrative scenarios and battles and all this kind of thing, building up a story not only of your warband and your sort of gang, but also where things are going in the grand scheme of things for the world of Drowned Earth as well. Because all of the games that you play will have some kind of impact on what's happening with the storyline going forward. The other interesting thing as well is that throughout the campaign, throughout the games you play, you'll win, lose, draw, whatever the result of your games, things are going to be unlocked for you and your friends to play through as you're getting set down to the tabletop. So you'll have things like Easter eggs coming up, you'll have new and interesting sort of equipment and stuff that can be thrown out to you.
Sorry, Ben. I think we've kind of lost Jerry to...
Nothing, I'm just looking at the fluffy balls in the front of that lifter.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
But yes, so fluffy balls and all. There's quite a lot of stuff for you to get stuck into when it comes to the campaign of this. If you want to go and find out more, we'll have some links down below in the show notes for you to go and check out. The other really cool thing that they've done is that the guys that behind Drowned Earth know that for a lot of people who play their game, they collect all the factions. For some people, they only go down one route. But for a lot of people who are trying to get into the game, they don't particularly know which faction they want to go for. And so they've designed what's called scenario packs for what's going to be, well, for this latest wave of releases and future releases as well. And this will take one of the characters from all the different factions and put them together into a box set that you can play in a multiplayer format. So the one that they've got so far is the King of Tartuffe, which is a King of the Hill scenario for 2 to 4 players to get stuck into, with the dinosaurs thrown in for good measure, because you need some kind of answer for everybody as well. And this allows you to play as all the different factions, because each of them's from a different one. Learn how they work, see whether or not you like them and their background, and then from that point on, you can sort of expand and then choose which one you want. I like the sound of this; it sounds fantastic to me. It's kind of something that I'd seen done before by the guys at Warplock when they came out with their game for Arcworld. They created a set that was not just for 2 players, but for up to 3 or 4 players as well, because you had lots of other things going in there for everyone to get involved and sort of try out the different factions for themselves. This is a really nice thing to see for the Drowned Earth, because it's got a lot more of that sort of like focal point around the characters and how they act. So it's really nice to see what they're doing here, and yeah, worth giving it a go, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Drowned Earth. I got I got my chance to play a couple of games this year. If you're interested in finding out more about the Drowned Earth, definitely go over to the website and look for our Let's Plays. They were a lot of fun. Prehistoric Pongo lives again. Yeah. I don't know why this is. I think every game I Let's Play, I seem to end up with one miniature I declare to be Pongo. But it's a very fluid game, great movement system. And this character pack is something I particularly like to see, fluffy balls and all.
Oh, he looks terrific. I mean, right there.
Yeah, you want to bring...
He's just missing a little set of...
bring him up again there, but Jerry, bring him up again.
He's just missing a set of, I don't know, dice hanging from that roll cage.
Yeah.
I'm assuming... I have no idea what's going on with them. I am assuming they are just a pair of fluffy balls that would normally be hanging off the rearview mirror of a car. But it looks like Stallone has kicked Ripley out of her lifter from Aliens and just went, yeah, it's mine now.
Yeah?
I'm going to hang my balls here and move along.
And just stuck a giant dinosaur helmet on the top as well.
Well, that's for protection, clearly.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll keep the rain off.
It's a great looking model. I have to wonder, how is it going to move around on a Drowned Earth board? Because those things...
Very slowly.
Very slowly. Now, one of the games I played, the whole center part of it, because as the name might suggest, a lot of Drowned Earth boards are drowned. There's lots of water going on. The whole center of the board was denied to us by piranhas going in. Does that thing just sink as soon as it jumps in?
Yeah,
I imagine it's not going to float.
Yeah,
it's just a man in a tin can eventually at that point. So.
That's what the fluffy balls are. They're a flotation device. Okay, well, that wraps us up for the news. If you've been watching the site recently, you'll have noticed that we had a lot of content with the guys from TT Combat, who came over to film about Carnivale with us, one of my all-time favourite games. Now, TT Combat, of course, do a lot more than just Carnivale, so I sat down with Jason and Lewis and had a chat with them about what else we can expect from TT Combat in the future. Hello everyone, I'm joined once again by the guys from TT Combat, who are here to let us know a bit of what TT Combat have got in store in the future. So guys, what's been happening? Let's just get stuck
Let's
in.
just go straight in.
Let's find out what's happening.
Don't pull your punches, Sam. Well, the big thing is Carnivale. That's what we've been here all week to talk about. We said quite a lot about Carnivale already. I mean,
not enough for my life.
Not enough. In brief, it's out now.
Yeah.
We're releasing our miniatures in waves over the coming months. There's more stuff coming. And there's lots more scenery as well coming out for the Streets of Venice.
Oh,
as well as other ranges too.
Yeah, as well as other ranges. We'll get to that, I think.
In terms of Streets of Venice, are there any really exciting terrain pieces?
Actually, there's a really big one. I can't remember what it's called. The Palazzo something. It's Italian. I don't know. Which has been in one of our board bundles at shows this year, which some viewers might have seen. Some viewers might already have, actually.
Yeah, people have been asking.
We tend to make a few big like releases like that to put in board bundles at shows throughout the year, and then it's going to come out. We've had a few people asking.
Revamping the Venetian Tower as well.
We are, yeah. The big tall Venetian Tower, going to make that a little bit more gameable, so you don't climb halfway up and then fall off.
Yeah, now that the game is hitting the tables, I'm really looking forward to seeing the Venice layouts people come up with.
I've got. I'm not sure. I'm going to talk about it anyway.
Yeah,
I've been secretly designing some modular Venetian buildings. So you know how in Venice all the buildings are sort of higgledy-piggledy podged together with all sorts of heights and things. Yeah, so I've been designing a little modular set of that, so you can combine them in whichever way you want.
It's a very unique city, and I think that's one of the things that makes it such a great setting.
Yeah,
for the game.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. I know TT Combat has been growing a lot. I mean, you've gained so many licenses and games as well.
It's been quite a year, hasn't it? Yeah, even since I started.
So I've only been at TT Combat like 2 years, and since then we've grown at least doubled in size, at the very least. Doubled in size. The warehouse has doubled in size. We now gone from, I think it was 9 lasers.
Yeah.
No,
7, seven lasers before.
We've got about 20 lasers, so the amount we can produce is just astronomical now. We're catching up.
We were fit to bursting before, weren't we? We were sort of all tripping over each other. So I think a lot of our die-hard fans have noticed, like over the last year, the releases for our MGF scenery particularly has been slowing down. Yeah. But we're back in full swing now. So we've got we've got 20 lasers. So we're never really behind on cuts anymore, which is nice. Yeah. Lots of stuff to make.
The expansion's been great. We've had a lot more people come in, and it's helped. Like,
we've increased our staff even further. New people in the resin room. Yeah, we've had a new artist start recently,
so
which is really cool.
Gone up, which is great.
Yeah, you're finding that this expansion is really letting you bring more attention to each of the games, or
pretty much. Like we've like over the last year, we have 6 individual games now, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're able to sort of give pieces of the games to different people. So like I've been very heavily invested in Carnivale for the last year and a bit, but so Rummelsam is sort of helmed by a couple of other people, and Drop Zone and Drop Fleet, obviously we've still got Dave still involved, and he sort of leads design on that, so it's nice to be able to sort of give different things to different people. Very, very cool.
Well, speaking of Drop Fleet and Drop Zone, we are very big fans of them. In fact, I think the first ever boot camp we ran was a Drop Zone Commander.
I remember that.
What's happening with those games?
Big stuff.
Big well, of course, it's Drop Zone. It's gonna be big.
It's been, we've been in the works for a little while. So we took over Drop Zone from Hawk last year. It's about a year now since we've had the license. So Dave's been working hard on it. Patrice has been working hard. Don over in the States has been working as well. We've been doing a bunch of stuff in the office. One thing that Hawk said before the company went under was that they were working on a new version of the Drop Zone game, new version of the rulebook, and it'd been in beta for a little while, and when we took over it was not quite ready to push out as quickly as we'd hoped. So we delayed it for a little bit and decided that the best way to release it was to be combining 2 of Hawk's previous big plans. So the big thing that they wanted to do, that Dave has been pushing for a long time, is Battle for Earth.
Yes.
Which was, he originally planned a Reconquest 3 to lead into Battle for Earth, but there was a lot in there that could be combined into one sort of massive thing. It's almost like Hawk's swan song kind of thing, isn't it? It's completely, entirely something that Dave has been leading to for years and years. He's super passionate about it. So we're like, you know what, Dave, this sounds great. Just let's do it. Let's do it. That sounds amazing. So instead of doing Drop Zone separately, Battle for Earth is going to be a combined book of Drop Fleet and Drop Zone. It's going to have all the new rules for Drop Zone Commander, which is the version that was in beta, the version that the fans of the game have been waiting for, basically. It's sort of been in a state of limbo while that's been going on, but it's coming next year. So it's going to have that for Drop Zone. There's all new units going in there as well. There's some other stuff for Drop Zone that I'm really not allowed to talk about. Really not allowed to talk about. It's such an annoyance that we've had it for so long. And Dave said recently, he was on a podcast recently, and he said that probably since he started working for us, 90% of the work he's done hasn't been seen.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's about right.
I will say on the notes you made for us, Lewis, on the Drop Zone Commander stuff, there's just one point here. A couple of big things we aren't allowed to talk about. Why would you put that on my notes?
Sorry, so that's for me more than anything, because I'm so bad at this. Whenever we do interviews, it's always me going, okay, let's just talk about the next thing. I'm under pain of firing, not allowed to talk about
with the Drop Zone
things.
Community, with how much we've been releasing with Drop Fleet, they feel a little bit left behind, just like a tad. That's not an intentional thing. We are still working on stuff, but because we want it to be just as good as everything else we're doing, there are big things coming out for it. It is huge. It's not being left behind at all. We want to stress that a lot.
I think Drop Fleet's been in a good position because the rules are pretty set. Then there's a few things that need tweaking here and there, as games always do, but it's been a good place to have some sort of nice releases from. They had Dreadnoughts this year. It was the biggest, some of the biggest spaceships, most detailed spaceships ever made. But Drop Zone has needed that much more work that releasing odd things here and there hasn't really. There's not really any point to it at the moment. So we're saving it for.
The thing we want to get across is Drop Zone players. If you're a big fan of Drop Zone, anyone be excited.
I am.
There's some big things. It's really cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dig up my Sheltari and get another game with that.
Yeah.
We saw a bit about what's happening with Drop Zone and Drop Fleet, and all the different events you guys have been at. Of course. Big kaiju style monsters were turning up.
Yeah, so we had the Apex Predator this year for Drop Zone. We wanted to do something for our show exclusive for the year, and we didn't want to. Well, Hawk had done before. They'd done very specialist units for particular factions, and that means that not everyone gets something they can buy. So we're working on the fauna that were in Reconquest 2 before, and we thought now's a good time to add something else. And it wasn't actually our original thing. It was something Patrice Rameau, the Drop Zone Drop Fleet artist, produced this massive piece of the Apex Predator fighting Cortez
Yeah.
in the big stumpy robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he made that, and we're like, yeah, that's cool. Let's make that.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Make it work.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We I had a hand like talking to Dave about the rules for it, and it's got like these like genetic mutations that you can do on each different one, and you can have multiple of them in the same game as well, which makes a ridiculous game. Yeah,
It's fun play style.
it is fun. It's a very sort of silly game. Like,
is good.
don't expect a proper tournament setting with an Apex.
Yeah.
But they're not for that at all. They're for fun.
No, I think the Apex Predators are something people have been wanting in that game since it started. I know that was what we actually did have some just in-house rules for some big monsters back when we first started playing.
Yeah, it's the right scale for it. Like, it means you can do these big crazy things, and it sort of just all fits.
Yeah. Now, with Battle for Earth, how do you find that crossover between Drop Zone and Drop Fleet? How have you found that work?
So there's been some rules already. There are some rules in the Drop Fleet rulebook for sort of combined campaigns, but like the Battle for Earth like campaign book is going to have more stuff like that, basically more stuff to make the two games work together like in unison. And yeah, Dave isn't allowing me to talk everything about that at the moment.
Come on, Dave. Come on. Let them loose.
That's one of those ones that I think that there's a lot of stuff to get right in it. And if we say, oh yeah, it'll work like this, and then we get 10 games down in a campaign or something, and like that doesn't work anymore, then it needs changing. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to make it right. But it's something that like Dave's envisioned since the very start, is playing the two games together like in complete like harmony.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Without just your game of Drop Zone is now destroyed. But yeah, so yeah, that's all coming out. So Drop Fleet is getting they're also getting printed rules for dreadnoughts and destroyers, and others. Not allowed to talk about it. Not allowed to talk about it.
Are you sure?
I'm very
even
sure.
Just give it a hint.
Absolutely very sure. Anyone that's been paying attention to Drop Zone and Drop Fleet for the past few years is probably going to be able to make an educated guess.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. If you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments below on the video, because I want to find out. Okay, moving on from Drop Zone and Drop Fleet, of course, we have Rumble Slam.
Yeah, Rumble Slam. We've been sat on Rumble Slam for a little bit. We released pretty much the entire game in a year.
Yep.
There's loads and loads of wrestlers to play, loads of stuff to do. So for the last like 6 months or so, we've been like working on alternate rules for it, haven't we?
Yeah. So we got the two latest expansions which have just been released for it. So that is Back Alley Brawl, which introduces a whole bunch of junk. Basically
just junk
in the ring, which you can pick up and throw at other people. Various other ways to win, like you can throw people out of the ring, but the crowd will throw them back in. Like all sorts of other stuff. It's completely different to play. Like the play style is a lot more aggressive but fun. Like as everyone knows, Rumble Slam is a beer and pretzel game. You sit down with your mates, you have a laugh, and it introduces way more fun to it. It
was literally made so that we could sit down in the pub and play games.
Yeah. And then the very latest expansion is our refs that we have on the table here. Sorry?
Sorry, go on, no.
We're very proud of what we've made here. The models are some of the best models we've made for Rumble Slam. Basically, it's just new refs. Each ref has its own characteristics. For example, the little jittery ref, you hit him by accident or you throw him at someone and takes damage, he turns into a massive werewolf. The werewolf does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be anywhere near it when it happens.
Yeah. So you don't want to mess with that particular ref.
No,
of them.
But you want your opponents to do that.
Yeah. So if you finish your activation near the big ref or at the end of the turn you're near the big ref, she's going to pick you up and she's going to throw you as far as she can at something.
Break it up. Break it up. I think the refs, like particularly, is one that was really for the fans because there's a couple of things in there. People have been asking for refs since the very start.
Yep.
So they wanted proper rules for using them, and we made sure that we've got rules that
new
work
rules for it as well.
and then stuff that I don't think people were expecting as well for the rest. It wasn't just there's a referee.
Yeah.
It's his death and he will kill you. He is a referee.
That's really cool because like at the end of your turn, if you're like next to him, you dice with death, and if you win, you suddenly become super powerful, like extra buffs on all your stats. But if you lose, you die.
Just straight away.
Yeah. You're dead.
But the other thing we put in there has been asked for a long time is pinning rules. So when the game first started, like it was designed as Royal Rumble, Rumble Slam, like it makes sense. Everyone out the ring, whoever's left standing wins. But people were asking for pins for a long time. Pinfalls is a big thing in wrestling. It's something we wanted to put in, but we hadn't quite balanced for time for the release. So we've got a version now for pinning, so you can trip people up, put them on the floor, and it makes the bigger that your wrestler is, the better they are at pinning. If you've got a troll falling on a halfling, then the troll...
you don't have a halfling.
Yeah, you don't have a halfling.
Yeah.
So yeah, we put both of those things in this set, so it's a super good set. If you've been playing RumbleSlam for a while, and you want to change up how you play your games, like these are the sets for you.
Yeah.
We've got another set coming out soon, which I think I'm allowed to talk about it.
I don't see why not. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
It's TLC.
TLC?
But in RumbleSlam, TLC is tables, ladders, and chests. So yeah, we don't have the chairs yet, but we got the chests. So it's a mix between sort of a TLC, like a hardcore mode, and also like dosh grab, as we call it. It's a briefcase match, essentially. It's all about climbing high. There's a few different modes in there. Things like climbing high to like pick the bag of dosh up, but sometimes the bag of dosh is a bag of dosh, sometimes it's a safe, sometimes it's a chest, very rarely it's a mimic, so you pick it up, it bites you and it runs off.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So yeah, we've got stuff like that. There's alternate game modes in there. My favourite one that we've been testing is the floor is lava, where because it's RumbleSlam, the floor is literally lava. So if you stay down on the base of the ring, you're going to get burnt to a crisp, so you've got to climb up as high as you can.
Oh, that sounds really fun. I love the idea of mixing up the game in that way.
Yeah.
Plus, with that TLC mode, it sounds like you're throwing in everything but the kitchen sink.
Pretty much,
You should put the kitchen sink
I think you can get most of that stuff in Back Alley Brawl as well, so you've got all of it. So yeah, like what we've been planning, what we've been focusing on mostly with RumbleSlam is alternate game modes, because the game, there's, what we're on, 120 odd players, 120 odd characters that you can pick, I think.
So many.
So yeah, we've been pushing on different game modes, but after that, we're going to be going back into more players and more wrestlers.
Yeah, there's things in the pipeline that we're looking at doing now.
Yeah.
We've got our latest artist working on like sketches and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it's quite nice. We've got some, next to me making new RumbleSlam characters every day.
Oh, can you give us a hint on some of those that might turn up?
You can pick one of these. You've seen them all.
I'll
let you do this. I spoil everything.
Like to the extent, they're all, I guess I can say, they're all sort of water-based.
Yeah,
so that's as much as I think.
In the new expansion, we got 2 new casinos coming up. Yeah. The casinos are what the teams are in RumbleSlam, for those that don't know. And within each casino, there's 2 teams and a bunch of superstars. And yeah, one of the casinos is, let's say, water-based.
Yeah, water-based.
That doesn't spoil too much.
I think you could say they're both water-based.
Yeah, the 2 teams are water-based. There's one casino that is. Yeah, I suppose you can.
That's what I'm going to say, because I think it's going to ruin it. There's definitely stuff in the pipeline. We're developing more stuff for all of our games all the time. I'm very excited about RumbleSlam. I love it. It's great fun.
Do you know what I want to spoil?
What do you want to
The
spoil?
pufferfish.
Well, there you go.
Please spoil the pufferfish. Tell us about the pufferfish.
I mean, it's kind of what you'd expect. It's a tiny little, like, it's a guy. It's a little wrestler man. And when he's normal, he's a bit weak and he's a bit rubbish. And he's got sort of bulging eyes.
Sort of a golem sort of.
Yeah. And then you punch him and he just expands with spikes. He's closer to the Stay Puft Marshmallow.
That's it.
Oh, I love the idea of that model.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, don't punch him and stand too close, because otherwise he's going to spike you. But yeah, so that's coming. That's a little way away. We're still a little way. Like I say, we're still doing the art on that. So yeah, a little way off that. But new teams are coming.
I noticed you also mentioned here on the notes new superstars.
Yeah. So yeah, every existing casino is going to be getting new superstars at the same time.
We've all been racking our brains back at the office about who we want to make new superstars, what they're going to be doing, all the special abilities.
Well, a lot of RumbleSlam, there's sort of a 50-50 mix between original characters and, let's say, inspired by real-world event wrestlers. So we've got this massive list on the wall, which is just wrestlers that we love. And there's...
The first 10 are just The Rock, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And there's some new ones that we're putting in for each casino that are things that you might have questioned why they're not there at the moment. It's because we had plans for them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
so lots coming.
I'm looking forward to seeing what else RumbleSlam has got. It's a game I've been dying to get a go of. So
well, hopefully we'll get a play soon, yeah.
I'm definitely hoping we'll get a game before you guys leave. Okay, where will people be able to find all this stuff? Do you have any events coming up that TT Combat will be attending?
Interesting you should say that.
Oh?
So we do go to some events, that's totally fine, but we at TT Combat have decided that we're going to start doing our own event.
Oh, cool.
It's going to be called TT Con, and it's going to be in the first quarter dates yet to be decided, pinned down properly. It's going to be the first quarter of next year, so it's not that far away.
No, not very far away.
But we're planning on having lots of events there. We're going to have Rumble Slam tournaments, Drop Fleet, Drop Zone tournaments, hopefully like an invasion.
Yeah, actually, the reason that we wanted to do it more than anything was when we took over Hawk, they used to run Invasion each year, which is their Drop Fleet, Drop Zone, like big campaign, like a tournament for the weekend. And since we took over, the first question most people ask is, when's Invasion? When's Invasion? And it's something we really wanted to carry on, but we thought it's a bit silly just to do just 2 games out of our fairly massive roster now. So yeah, we're doing all of our TT Combat games there. There's also a bunch of other games coming on. We can't say exactly what we're talking to a bunch of other companies.
We're inviting other people along to come play their games as well, and hopefully some vendors as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if we're allowed. I'm not that we're allowed. I don't think anyone's completely. Yeah,
nothing's shored up just yet, so we don't want to say any names just in case no one's there, but people will be there.
Yeah, and when everything's cemented, we'll be able to confirm exactly who's going to be there.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's going to be in Milton Keynes, so nice and central for a lot of people. Sorry, not you lot.
Yeah, no, we're kind of used to being out.
I mean, we feel it too. Down in Cornwall, everything is not central for us.
Yeah, everything's north.
Yeah,
everything's
a lot.
Everything's south for us.
Me in the middle.
Everything's south over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we thought like Milton Keynes is a perfect place for it because it's super easy to get to for everyone. There's loads of trains, there's loads of transport options to get there. So yeah, it's going to be there Q1 next year.
Perfect.
With loads of stuff going on. Like
there'll be event exclusive models there.
There'll be new event exclusive models. There's also going to be previews of forthcoming things. So maybe the things I'm not allowed to talk about now, we might be able to show some of those.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. And also the tournaments are going to have like trophies and all sorts of stuff.
Excellent. Hopefully we can see more of that.
Yeah.
Is there a place people will be able to go to check for updates and find out more about
the TT Combat Facebook page is the best place. Facebook.com/TT Combat.
Okay.
Very, very easy. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to call it there for this one, guys. I know that you do have something exciting to talk about. A new Kickstarter, yes?
We do, yeah, a new Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But for the next video, maybe?
Yeah, we're gonna give that one its own video so we can properly dive into that, because halflings.
Hi guys, this is Radek from sunny Poland on a holiday, and you are watching Weekender. Cheers.
It was really interesting talking with the guys from TT Combat, getting a look ahead at what they've got planned, especially for things like Drop Fleet and Drop Zone. Yeah.
I know a lot of people will be very happy to see more stuff coming out, because there was a bit when they took over from Hawk that it sort of dropped off for a bit, and people felt that they weren't really getting supported. So to hear new stuff coming for both of those systems will cheer a lot of people up.
Especially for Drop Zone. And I think with this new book that if I recall, that's coming on the way. Seeing how the two will get to interplay far more, will be very interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. I think we've just got a bit more time to see some Kickstarters. Ben, what's happening there?
Yeah, sure. So we've just got one Kickstarter to look at this week. It's from the guys at Tabletop Miniature Solutions, or TMS, as most people probably know them as. And this is for their 9th Age starter armies and ways to get stuck into the game. Now, for a lot of people, they'll know that 9th Age was a sort of community sort of driven project that happened after what happened with Warhammer 8th Edition. A lot of people really still liked the big sort of mass battles that were played out using the sort of old world and that kind of thing. And so they took it upon themselves to create their own new rule set, which is free to download, as well as a whole bunch of other new rule books and supplements and all kinds of different things like that. Again, free to download for people to still be playing with their big rank and file armies on the tabletop. However, this Kickstarter is kind of focused towards getting people started on the miniature side of things, because while there's still a lot of places out there that supply lots of rank and file miniatures to be used in games, these ones are very much catered towards how you play 9th Age, and it's very much sort of focused on their sort of tournament armies and things like that. And so this Kickstarter has 3 armies that you can pick from to get stuck into. There's the Undying Dynasties, which is very reminiscent of those that would have loved their Tomb Kings back in the day. You've got the Kingdoms of Equitaine, which are their sort of shining Grail Knights and stuff. So if you like yourself some Bretonnians, you've got something there too. And they've also got the Vampire Covenant as well. So if you like yourself a little bit more of that traditional style of vampire rather than the undead of the deserts, then you've got that kind of aspect going on there as well. as in addition to the armies that they're supplying, they're also working on a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So if you like the idea of having some sort of new magnetized regiment trays, they're working on that as an add-on. They've also got some playmats. So if you want to work with them on sort of getting those onto the tabletop, you've got some really cool versions of those. And also they're working on some 2D terrain as well. So if you like the idea of setting up some tabletops very, very quickly and playing out some games, then you've got some 2D terrain too. As I say, all of the stuff they do already on the rule side of things is completely free. So if you want to go and check out all the stuff for that, we'll have some links down to the Kickstarter which you can follow through and check out all that kind of thing. I believe at this current time they have about 16 different armies that they fleshed out with rules. A lot of these then have not just black and white rule sets, but also full color ones with artwork and stuff in it as well, which is really neat. And they're working on expanding on it and building their own lore for this world as well. That takes it away from what we knew from Warhammer Fantasy and sort of sets it into its own universe as well, which I thought was really good. So if you like the idea of playing out some mass battle ranked games, you've got some good stuff here on Kickstarter from these guys. Yeah.
We actually had the guys, we had Arthur from TMS in the studio in the past week. So I believe we did film a Let's Play of Ninth Age, which is something I'm really looking forward to seeing how that came out, because I love my old school massed fantasy battle games, but I haven't actually delved into Ninth Ages yet.
It more or less spawned forth from Warhammer 8th and what was at that stage the Swedish comp tournament pack, which was generally what was used for the ETC and some of the other main tournaments around Europe. So a lot of the phases and dynamics and the like are very familiar to anybody who's played that. It hasn't walked too far away from what Warhammer was. Please be very handy for other mass games like Kings of War as well. They have Undead and they have Dust. Kingdom of Dust. I want to say Dust. It's very low calorie. Dust. And
low calorie.
Yep.
Low cal kingdom.
Yep. And
that's going to be their new one.
The Brotherhood as well would be their version of the Kingdom of Aquitaine there.
Yeah.
So
they are beautiful models. They're very nice sculpts, and they keep that old school style to them. I think the Kingdom of Aquitaine particularly have that flamboyance to them that I really love to see from a knightly army. You want that to be a spectacle on the tabletop.
They're very much the romantic vision of what almost an Arthurian knight would be.
Yeah,
they bear little resemblance to reality, but they look like any child will imagine a knight.
Yeah, heroic knights riding horses with curtains round them.
That's the one.
Another Pratchett reference. Take a shot. Okay, well, I think that about wraps us up, apart from competitions. Competition. Remember, we have announced all of the prizes from Essen, so head over to the Claimer Prize to check out that. See if you won anything nice. And last week, we were giving away 3 Rampart terrain sets with the BOW shield logos for you to attach to the walls there, just if you want to make the place look a bit more like BOW HQ.
If you've always wanted to murder everybody in Beast of War headquarters, now's your chance to play that out on the tabletop. Put your hand on it. Bad.
The winner for that has been announced, and they are also in the prize claim for section. So just head over to OnTableTop, go up to the drop-down menu and click Claim a Prize there, and you'll find all the details you need. This week, of course, we are giving away the Warhammer 40k Vigilus campaign book. So just comment below with your thoughts on anything we've talked about, or maybe rambled about is a better turn of phrase.
Yeah, we're running a Vigilus mega game in here.
Yes.
Couple of weeks' time, so just after the book's released, but not soon enough for us to have the book to plan it. So if you want to put any ideas for me on ways I can really mess up the people who are playing it, go for that as well. I've got some corkers already, but
you've been working feverishly on that. Have you any little hints you think you can give?
Yeah. Every table has 6 objective markers, one of which will be a piece of very old archaeotech. And they won't know, it's randomly determined. So once they take and hold an objective, something will happen. And that something could be accidentally activating every objective on every table to flame 6 inches out, burning anybody who's close as part of the automated defense system. Or it might be a stasis field on a random table appearing and trapping people in a 2-foot bubble for a turn. So they don't know any of this is coming. Let's hope none of them are watching this. Those of you who are, it's not going to help you. Not going to help you. So yeah, anything else I can do to screw over our mega game players?
Let us know. That is going to be really fun. We'll definitely have to see about getting some vlogs or something so we can get that on the website and show just how big a battle we've got planned. Okay, in the meantime, thank you all very much for coming and watching us rant about games for a while. If you want to see more, remember we do have the XLBS tomorrow for our Backstage subscribers. If you fancy becoming a Backstage subscriber, please, it is a massive help to us. Just come on over to the site and you can sign up for your 7-day free trial and find out what you're missing. In the meantime, Jerry, thank you very much.
Tally bye.
Ben, thank you as always.
Bye.
And thanks to all of you. Have a great week of gaming.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now, and be sure to check out beastsofwar.com for the latest gaming news and gaming let's plays. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.